Okay, so LogicMonitor recently published a research report, and I'll read out the title. So it's Unleashing AI-Driven IT Operations, Challenges, Opportunities, and Future Growth. So I guess before we drill down into what it revealed, just be good to understand the background, why the decision, what were you hoping to uncover, or why did you think you needed to carry out this research, if you like?
Yeah, for sure. So Logic Monitor is a hybrid observability platform powered by AI. And we've been working with a lot of our customers. We think about their infrastructure. We're talking hybrid, so multi-cloud, on-prem, really, really complex environments. And we leverage AI within our platform to support our customers from a troubleshooting, monitoring, and broad observability perspective. And so we invested in this report or research because we really wanted to understand the state of AI and adoption within ITOps, kind of exploring current usage, challenges, and future potential. And so I think we were able to survey about 500 IT professionals to really kind of dig into this market.
Okay, and I think the high level finding, which perhaps didn't come as a surprise to you, but maybe it did, is that there is an accelerating adoption of AI-driven tools in the IT ops space, and this is also having something of an impact on the data center. So perhaps you can just talk us through, that in a little more detail.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't surprising, but it was good to see simply the amount of investment and time that we've been spending. Looking at the research report, I think it was 68 had adopted Gen AI, 62 in ML, 50% in NLP or natural language processing. Uh, and it makes a lot of sense. So if you think about IT operations and some of these complex environments, these methods or capabilities are really, really important in terms of refining and helping people, frankly, monitor and manage their environments. And when we think about the modern data centers, really it's going to push these kind of modern data centers or these traditional data centers to change because there's a lot of flexibility that you need to monitor this stuff or to even run some of these routines. For example, ML, you may want to train your ML model on-prem, but then you may want to leverage something like Bedrock or OpenAI from a generative perspective. So there's a lot of flexibility that a lot of people are looking at in order to support and manage and leverage these AI capabilities.
Okay, and in terms of, I suppose, I don't know whether we call the positive results or some of the sort of good things that you uncovered is there is a pretty much a widespread adoption of AI. There's a fair amount of operational maturity, and I guess from your point of view, good to know that there's a proven ROI around these things. So again, just what might want to say in a bit more detail on some of that.
Sure. Yeah, the thing I actually found most interesting is when people talked about maturity post AI implementation. I think it was 63% of organizations described operations as proactive, emphasizing the benefits that they've been able to kind of pull from these AI capabilities. And if you look at the use cases, and we see this today on our platform, anomaly detection, RCA, root cause analysis, and incident management. These are kind of three key areas that people have been focusing on. And you can imagine as more data comes into these platforms and as the complexity of these environments increases, take anomaly detection. You're going to see like thousands and thousands of events, but really what you want to be looking at is what's unique, what's different, and flag that first. If we even look at the Logic Monitor platform, I think we're doing over 1 trillion metrics a day across all of our customers. So there's a significant amount of data that's pumping through these environments, these data centers. The other is root cause. So you may identify it, but then you need to figure out why this happened. So there may be a catastrophic event and you may have thousands of alerts, but then you have to link those back to what actually caused that. To then incident management, and this is something that we released last year called Edwin, really powerful AI capability with Logic Monitor, where we kind of go into this alert storms. You see tens of thousands, millions of events. And what it's able to do is correlate these, so group these into insights. And instead of focusing on thousands of incidents, you can create a subset of incidents from these insights and start there, which I think is really, really powerful. In terms of ROI, and I'm just looking at some of the data that we have from the report, increased productivity. So leveraging these types of use cases, I think it was over 60% highlighted increased productivity in the IT staff because the systems were able to bubble up and provide the right level of information. RCA, I think it was 49% responded because you have all of this context and you can leverage AI to do a lot of the kind of early workings here. 49% responded that faster RC and resolution came from it. And then reduced incident response time. So this kind of goes back to anomaly detection. 47% flagged as faster recognition. Again, leveraging these AI capabilities to build a more resilient and scalable infrastructure.
Okay, if you like the positive picture, I won't say negative, but the research at least highlighted some obstacles that are either slowing down people's adoption when it comes to AI for IT ops, or I don't know if they're actually preventing, they're a sort of, deal breaker. But some of the things that I think were quoted included the problems around complex integration, data privacy concerns, and I also think costs and I mean tool sprawl's not unique to this area. I guess people just think they have too many tools. But again, just be good to understand what people were telling you
Yeah.
about these things and how problematic or not you think that they really are.
Right. And I think you did a good job listing them there. There's complexity and cost. There's data integration, which then I would argue includes integration with existing tools. And then to your point, the data privacy as well. Um, and I think that these are challenges for sure, but they're not blockers in the sense when you think about complexity and cost, a lot of this has to do with making sure that you have the right resources, that have the right knowledge and capabilities so they understand the problem that you're trying to solve and know enough about the AI capabilities to ensure that you're leveraging the right models for the right problems. So in terms of complexity and cost, it's not like you can just flip this on. You need to make sure that you have the capabilities internally to understand the technology that you can apply to solve the problem. And it doesn't just happen the first time. I think like we're in the early innings here, especially in generative. And so this takes people a lot of refinement to get it right. And that tends to increase the cost if you weren't expecting multiple routines and validations to get to the point that you need to be at. And then on like data integration issues, I think that's the other challenge is if you look at kind of the capabilities here, you need to be able to pull all of this data, and it's structured and unstructured data from all these different sources, could be private, could be public, and making sure that you can pull those, translate those, and then feed those into the models. That's important as well. And I think on the privacy piece, when you think about data, there's a lot of concern on where does this data go? And so I think first and foremost is you need to be able to understand how the data is leveraged by these models and these systems. That's the first. And then the second is to make sure the data that you are propagating or publishing to these systems is appropriately managed. And so having a data privacy policy to ensure that any kind of data that's passed over that may be private, it needs to be obfuscated or effectively removed to ensure you support the privacy requirements that your company needs to follow and manage.
Okay, and in terms of the future, I think the research had a look at that and suggests that I think it says there is investment momentum in this area. It also highlights, I guess, tech convergence, which is, I guess, an ongoing sort of bit of a holy grail for a lot of companies. And then
Yeah.
something that was new to me, but probably not to you, I'm sure, but the demand for XAI or explainability. So I'd be particularly interested in that, but please tell us more about each of those findings.
Yeah, in terms of the future, again, looking back at the report, I think it was 81% plan to increase their investments just in the next 12 months. And business-wise, people are seeing efficiencies, especially in the ability to automate some of these processes. Speed of problem solving is another one as well. So again, going back to some of these capabilities, surfacing, anomalies or doing the clustering to identify the outage and highlight where to start in terms of troubleshooting, to then improve service availability. So again, going back to platforms and resiliency. You talk about explainability. I think in terms of the emerging trends, maybe I'll start there and then go into explainability because I think that's one of them. One is this like increased customization, and really what that means is refinement. So whether you're taking a model off the shelf or you're leveraging data within your system or within your environment, there's a lot of refinement that needs to happen here. So prompting the models to improve the quality and scope of them, I think is one of the big areas that people are really focusing on. So how do you take different types of data sets, refine them in a way that best reflects what you want to get out of those models? The other one is explainability that you just kind of brought up. And I think the interesting thing here is that, I was in self-driving cars for almost 4 years. And one of the challenges we had there is these are non-deterministic systems. And so explainability is very, very important. You can't just have a binary result. You need to be able to describe or explain why the system came to that conclusion. And so if it summarizes or it takes an action, you need to make sure why, and be able to explain why it came to that result, or came to that decision. So I think the explainability piece is really important because the more you can understand why the model came to the appropriate conclusion, the better opportunity you have to increase that kind of customization or refinement that I just talked about a little bit earlier, which I think is really, really powerful. So those kind of go hand to hand. And as an end user, when you see that result, it's really helpful to understand why it came to that. So let's take, um, automated run books. If I'm looking at an outage, the system can offer or suggest how I can resolve it, but more importantly, it should highlight why it came to that conclusion. And if the system had identified that the last, 29 of 30 incidents were resolved in a certain pattern or path, and highlighting that run book in terms of how to resolve it, that's really important versus just showing this is what you need to do. So that explainability, dimension, I think, is very important and one that we're going to see continued investment. And then the last, enhanced security and privacy. I think this will always continue to make sure that you're very aware of the data that is being propagated or passed into those models, and ensuring that any kind of privacy is protected here, whether again it's obfuscation, or just removing those data sets altogether.
Okay. And is explainability very much there already, or is it still an emerging part of the AI for IT ops? And the other thing I suppose I would ask is from memory, um, is how far away are we from the ultimate sort of self-learning, automated, I guess that's the holy grail, where to a certain extent the human operator can sort of turn it on, go away and trust that it's going to make all the right decisions at the right times. Is that still a bit of a pipe dream, shall we say?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll start with the explainability piece. That I think we're going to see quite a bit of refinement, not only in how people think about it, but most likely tool sets and pipelines to support the art, almost the art of improving the explainable aspect of the decisions that these models make. I think that that's really important, especially from an auditing perspective. The second one, in terms of are we there, kind of going back to this, self-driving car bit, the last time I made a quote, I think I said that we would have self-driving cars prevalent all across the US in 2025. Now, maybe Waymo's there, but we still have a ways to go. And I think that that's true with a lot of these new generative techniques that people are seeing. We've seen massive advancements here, but I still think we're quite, in the early innings. And this is going to take time. And I see it more of a natural progression. So at first, we can leverage, and we're already seeing it today, in fact, with LogicMonitor and Edwin, who's effectively your AI teammate. What we see is, rather than just making that decision and automating the stuff, I do think that there's this aspect of trust that you need to get to. And so the way that we've approached it is leverage generative as almost that teammate. So as you're troubleshooting, you have all of this additional context that's stitched together and summarized in a really powerful way that allows you to move faster and more effectively. I think over time, these systems can learn, and probabilistically, once you get to some threshold, maybe it's 99%, 95%, whatever it may be, then you can start to provide the, hey, would you like the system to just take care of this for you? And then over time, you could see the systems completely automate this. And I think on the automation stuff, maybe you start with more basic things like restarting services or increasing storage or whatever it may be from an infrastructure perspective. And over time, as there's more trust in these systems and proof, again, part of it is explainability, part of it is just having that data and being able to point to that data that you have high confidence. Then over time, you'll see this get into more of the automation. But we really look at it as this like continuum where it's a teammate today, but over time, you'll start to see more automated tasks.
Okay, and maybe just in finishing, I mean, you may have some words of wisdom. Maybe we've covered everything, but just for folks on their AI for IT ops journey, just any advice you'd give them, do's, don'ts. Whether that I suppose is slightly different if you're starting out on the journey and you're further along, but just any thoughts you can maybe share as to things to look out for and say that what's good, what's maybe not so good in terms of
Yeah,
consider.
I, I think people need to embrace um, AI, and they need to embrace it, not the acronym, but rather the opportunity. And what I mean by that is really looking at how can you leverage these capabilities that exist today, these technologies today that can improve your company. And that could be anything from infrastructure to business to marketing to sales. Like this is a really powerful moment in time that I think people need to embrace. But part of that embracing is realizing that most companies will need to invest in upscaling the team and talent to make sure that you have the right team that understands the technologies that exist today and how they can be applied to solve the problems that you may have as an organization. I think the second one is that ruthless prioritization. So go pick the high ROI use cases. Start there. From a IT ops perspective, this is things like anomaly detection, incident automation. Like these are focus on the really high ROI pieces. And then as you go through this, I do think privacy is critical. And so data governance is another one that I would make sure that you're very aware of and clear on in terms of how you're leveraging the data and making sure you understand kind of the pipeline and the workflow of that. But I think don't underestimate the time that it takes to get these solutions right. I think it takes a lot of iterative refinement. And I think you need to be cautious in terms of the investment there to make sure that you give yourself and your organization enough time to evaluate the stuff and frankly get it right. And I think getting it right, it's not just like, again, a binary switch. It kind of takes time and nothing's perfect. And then on the don't just kind of jump in there. I think it kind of goes back to the do piece, which is making sure that you have the right team and talent for this, and you really understand the technology and how you're going to leverage and apply it.